everyone. Welcome to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the Advertising and Marketing Manager, and I'm your host today. Today, we are sponsored by Heddlecraft. If you want to learn more about this incredible magazine, go to heddlecraft.com. As always, we will take questions today for the last 15 minutes of the program. Please put them in the Q&A and not in the chat. We love your comments in the chat, but I can't see them. I need those to be in the Q&A. Today, I'm so excited. We have Bhakti Ziek, who's going to be here today. Bhakti is a known international fiber artist whose work has ranged from Backstrap Loom all the way to Jacquard Loom. She has an M.F.A. from Cranbrook Academy. She has a B.F.A. from the University of Kansas. She has a B.A. from SUNY at Stony Brook. She has lectured and taught throughout the U.S. and abroad. Her writings on contemporary fiber have been published in many journals, such as American Crafts, Surface Design, and Fiberarts. She is the co-author with Alice Schlein of the Woven Pixel, Designing for Jacquard and Dobby Looms, which was the book for Jacquard for years. She also wrote Weaving on a Backstrap Loom with her mother, Nona Ziek. Her extensive exhibit experience and work is on, she has a piece in the permanent collection for Princeton University. And she's also at the Museum of Arts and Design in New York City. She's a former college professor, and she now teaches private lessons at her home in New Mexico. Welcome. We're so glad you're here.
Hi, Kathy.
How are you, Bhakti?
Happy to be here too.
Oh, good. Well, our first question is the most important. What is your favorite tea?
I'm actually drinking hot water with some stress relief. So
I hope this isn't stressful. This is a piece of cake.
Okay.
Well, one thing we'd like to hear is, how did you get started in fiber?
Yeah. First, I do want to thank Heddlecraft and HTA and you, Kathy, and everybody who's helped you with these talks. And I'm really, really pleased to be part of it today. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So when I finished my my BA in psychology, I wanted to go to a commune. I'm from New York, and I didn't think my psychology degree had anything that would be helpful at a commune. So I decided I needed a skill, and I started taking lessons in weaving and in ceramics. And I never got to that commune. I mean, I've had an interesting life, and maybe I'm grateful I never got to that commune. I don't know. But weaving is still very much a part of my everyday life.
Well, I think we're all grateful you didn't get to that, because it might be you wouldn't be here today, and we are excited that you are, and we love your work. So one of the works we're going to talk about right now is called Continuum, and it's also from a series of the same names, which I think Continuum fits you so well. Can you talk some about this piece and how it came about?
Sure. So first, my husband and I moved to Vermont in 2002, and I had a lot of time to do work. And I wanted to introduce myself to the community, and was able to arrange a show at the local art center with a friend of mine, so a two-person show. And I did the series Continuum, which I still think is some of the best work I've done. And so you can see I use this horizontal format for a lot of the pieces. They're about 14 inches high by maybe 48 inches wide. And my work is really very often weaving about weaving. I like to embed a lot of, sort of like secret handshakes to weavers. Atwater at one point in one of her monographs describes satin structures as stars, that you can plot a satin structure with a star. So you'll often see these satin structures in my work, but for other people, they're just stars. on the left, you can see I'm doing with like this checkerboard, but they're tests of weave structures. So I needed to know how the combination of wefts were going to show up as colors, a color palette, like you'd go to a paint store, but I have this choice in my computer. And then the branches that are kind of like the connector between the how-to and then the image, that I also think of them as synapses in the brain. So this whole series really is about change, transition, continuous things, which are often repeated in my work.
Now, this is one, that was one continuous piece, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right.
So that one of the nice things, I work on a thread controller loom, you know, from Digital Weaving Norway. And you can, because every thread is individually manipulated, you can go from one type of structure to another completely freely. And image making, like you can see in this image of math on the right, I could scan my handwritten notes and then weave them. So
I love that. I love that. Well, we're going to hear more about Jacquard as we continue today. So one thing I've noticed in your life, there's all these continuums, like from Backstrap Loom to Jacquard, which I don't know if there's anything more complicated, from plain weave to more complex weavings. And I think I have this correct. One of the first schools you ever went to was down in Mexico, all the way from the University of Kansas to Cranbrook. And even now you go from, you do dish towels and plain weave, right? To give away or for others. And then again, there's that extreme other side of this narrative that you use with a very complex Jacquard weaving. So can you talk some about those continuums for you?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of us like to think of our life as sort of a progression, a very linear line, right? That goes, but I don't actually think that that's it at all. First of all, and I'm very big on labels and trying to figure things out. So don't get me wrong about this. I fall into this labeling, categorizing, separating as much as anyone. But really, I do think that most things are not just left and right or day and night, black and white, but there's shades in between. And so I feel that my life is more almost circular, but not a circle, but more like a spiral. And I keep coming around and back to the same things. And then each time I do, it's slightly different. And also I see, you know, something that I might have thought was quite distinct. I can often find, oh, the similarities or how things are connected. Yeah, I think that my life, you know, I've always wanted to have a holistic life. I did not want to have that separation of work and play and, you know, friends and workers, and that too is a continuum that I feel that I try to make it all as one piece of cloth. Yeah.
Well, what's the appeal of a Jacquard loom for you? And how do you choose? I'm going to do a floor loom or I'm going to do a Jacquard. Right. How do you decide that?
Well, I think that nowadays I approach my work with, I have an idea, and then the first thing I try to think of is what's the best technology to execute this idea. So, you know, the overshot that you see on the right, it's a 4-shaft weaving. I still think, I don't know, Kathy, I might disagree with you that Jacquard is the most complex. I think 4-shaft weaving is extremely complex. And the fact that everything has to be threaded on just 4 shafts, and you can end up with this kind of powerful magnetic moving image, you know, to me, that's mind-blowing. Where with the Jacquard, it really is, especially today with the computerized Jacquards, so we don't have to cut cards and we can go back and make changes so easily. You do have to go back to the computer, but then you go right to the loom. I can do any image in the world. I have 880 threads and everyone can be manipulated. So really it begins with an idea, and then I think what idea, which technology is the most appropriate.
We've got people in the chat cheering about the 4-harness. So it's like, yeah, go 4-harness. You wrote a book with Alice Schlein for Jacquard, the woven pixel designing for Jacquard and Dobby looms using Photoshop. And I think at the time it was the book, right? I don't recall a lot of books being out on the market.
No, there are.
Yeah,
even
there's
today.
more now, but not then. So how did that come about? How did the two of you hook up and decide to do a book?
Yeah. So, I was professor of weaving at Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science. So it was a technical college. It's now called something else. I'm sure it's still a technical college. And when I got there in 1990, I have to get my dates right, 1990, they still had 19th century Jacquard looms. You had to cut cards. Yeah, you had to cut the cards. You had to lace them, to put them on the loom. If you had a mistake in the cards, you had to fix it. Students really did not want to work on that equipment. And times had changed. So in 1991, they threw out those looms and they got 2 fully electronic Jacquard looms. Well, they were just beginning to develop software specifically for these electronic looms. And because our school trained people that went into industry, all of the companies donated their software to our school. So I was learning 6 or 7 different programs and teaching my students. And what I always say is, I had taught them how to say, hello, how are you? Over and over and over. I never could get in depth. But anyway, when I left that school in 2000, I had all of this, I had thousands of weave structures that I had created and saved in these programs, and I couldn't access them. They were all specific for each program, and to buy a program some of them cost over $100,000 per program. At that time, the cheapest program was $30,000. And honestly, I did start to buy one. And after 2 months, realized, oh, do I pay my mortgage or do I buy this software? I went with the mortgage.
Good.
So Alice at that time, and Alice Schlein is the most amazing weaver and has shared so much of herself with the weaving community, had published an article on Photoshop. And I read it and realized, oh, here is a way that anyone can access Jacquard info. So I got in touch with Alice. She lives in South Carolina. I was in New Mexico. We spent almost 2 years writing that book. And it's available free today. Anybody can download it on handweaving.net. Just go to authors, look up Schlein, and then you'll see it. And it's still the definitive book on how to design for Jacquard. So I'm very proud of it. Alice is too. And we became great friends by doing it. And I think the information is still accurate.
I have to say that is very generous to just put it out there for anyone to use. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, the truth is, Photoshop changes what they're doing every year.
That's true.
Every 6 months, they're trying to get new customers. They want you to upgrade. And we just got tired of it. We did not want to continue to do that. And in fact, I stopped. I have the versions on my computers are the standalone where you could still buy a disk and put it on your computer. And I don't want to go to the cloud. So whatever new tricks and whatever's there, I don't know it,
Well, again, thank you for doing that.
Now,
this next work we're going to look at is called Stardust. And this was for the community hall at Whitman College. And I loved how you described how it goes from one to the other, the gradation, which matches students, how they come in and they get more knowledge, they get more maturity, they change, just like this weaving changes. So can you talk some more about how this work came about?
Sure. So I think it was 2013, I got an email out of the blue asking me if I wanted to submit proposals for this building in Princeton. Of course, I wanted to submit proposals. And I did submit 3, but I will say that this is the first one, and it almost sprung fully formed in my mind. And, you know, I always feel as if I worked my whole entire career as a weaver to be ready to do this piece. And, you know, you can see it's 6 panels. Each panel is 16 feet high. I didn't actually have space in my house to see a finished panel. None of my ceilings were that high. And I decided so the reason that it worked so well for me is that I didn't just try to fit into something for Princeton. I worked within what I was already doing. So numbers and letters and words, they were already the building blocks of my work. And shared knowledge we share knowledge through alphabets, words, numbers. So I thought that was just the appropriate visual imagery for this piece. Sky is always very important to me. That's why I'm back in New Mexico. I just love the sky here. And then again, that transition. And the other thing about sky is that, you know, we all share the same sky. You're in Georgia, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm in New Mexico. It's the same sky. Anybody watching, I had a piece, my roots. So I like to put in these imagery that we share, but also understand that there's lots of distinctions that get formed. So
I just love this. Now, did they have a lot of input into what this piece should be, would be, could be?
They had a little input. There was a committee, and I went and did a presentation. And originally, I just had art English alphabet. They asked me could I be more inclusive, which just fit right in. So there's Chinese letters, there's Korean letters, there's, you know, so Arabic. So I tried to add more. But otherwise, no, they just left me. I think it was very fortunate. I've never done another commission. I don't know if I will. It would have to fit within what I feel I'm already doing. And this one did. I'm very proud of it.
Good.
Yeah.
You work in an incredible combination of symbolic and abstract combined with very narrative. How do you combine those two? I mean, that was a great example of that, but there's more too.
Right. You know, I don't think I actually try to combine them, and nor do I try to be one thing or the other. So maybe it goes back to that continuum. I can say that I have friends, or I see some other artists whose work I admire, who just fit so concisely in a box. You know, they're so consistent, and the work all grows. It just is, you know, just the blooming of an idea. And I'm not like that. I'm very drawn to minimalist work, but you can see from the complexity in my own work that I actually very rarely can give myself permission to be as minimal as I admire in others. So I think I work back and forth. You know, not quite a pendulum, but it's often like a pendulum swinging from, I do a body of work, and then all of a sudden it just feels like I need something else to refresh it. And it might be just the opposite. So there's both elements. I mean, I don't want to be a realist. I do know that. I'm not trying, even if I start with a camera and photograph, I'll try to soften it, change it, add to it, hide it. So, yeah.
Well, and I know I'm stating the obvious, but the one thing that struck me was when I look at your work, I think my first reaction is, oh, but then it's like it has layers. There's that first appearance, and then you see more. So it is a combination of very simple, but there's a lot more to it. Not necessarily underneath, but if you take time to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. And I hope that I hope there's something in each piece that kind of stops people so that they look. And, it's very hard right now. We're inundated with images, right? So for me, if I see a word, I have to stop and read it. I do, I'm a reader. So I think embedding words in my work is also of course it's important to me, but I'm trying to get that viewer to stop a little bit longer and just look.
Oh, I love that. That's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
If you seem to embrace what a lot of people find disconcerting for themselves. Like you talk a lot about your monkey mind, but instead of fighting the monkey mind and trying to control it, you seem to embrace it and bring it into your work. Can you talk about what you mean by monkey mind and a little more about that?
Sure. So it's not my term, it's a Buddhist term.
Right.
And it's a term for the chatter, the constant chatter that's in our brains. And, some people think, oh, I'm going to learn to meditate and I'm going to silence my mind. But the truth is meditation doesn't silence it. The chatter is going to go on forever. Monkey mind it's a human condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to follow every path that chatter takes you down. Most of it's nonsense. And so I think meditation or work, and for me, weaving is just a focusing. And that focusing enables me to be present and therefore to be receptive to other things. And so in that focusing, the chatter is still going on in the background, but I'm not following it down every diverse path, right? And this image, this is funny, but this is of Hanuman, Hanuman is just this wonderful Hindu god. And my name, Bhakti, it means devotion. And Hanuman is the epitome of devotion. He was a servant of Ram. And at one point, he tears his heart open and he shows that every bone, every part of his body is engraved with the name of Ram, of God.
Uh-huh.
So I always talk about my fairy god monkey, which is Hanuman, who I think is, sometimes I'm more skeptical than others, but I think he's sitting on my shoulder helping me in my life. So that's funny. And he is a monkey and he is all that silliness. So monkey mind has, it's both kind of annoying and it's also, it just is. It's a nature, our nature.
Mm-hmm.
So you ask how I can accept it. Well, I think it's more the understanding that it's not going away.
Yeah.
So just, work with it and keep going. So there's another Buddhist saying that says, life as it is, not as you want it to be. And, it's not an easy thing to accept. But sometimes when you do, then you can move through because we all have pain. We all have disappointment. I'm 75. I can look at many, many things that I thought were certainly going to come to my life, and they didn't. And then I can also look at so many things and just think how blessed I am to have had or to have what I have. So life as it is, not as you want it to be.
When I was reading about you, the one thing that struck me was how, I'm probably going to say this badly, how lucky you and we are with your misfortunes, that the commune didn't turn out, that things happened in your life that seemed to redirect you, that led you here. And for those of us who love your work, we're excited about that. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting that you you seem to take the path anyway.
Yeah.
It worked well for you.
Yes, it has. And mostly I think the reason is that I've never been afraid to go towards something I wanted, because I always thought if it didn't work out, I can turn around and do something else. And, I'd say probably most of us, if we look in hindsight at our lives, we realize that we've been fortunate. Even those with terror, I mean, I'm not going to minimize the tragedy of being a human being, but there's also such joy.
Another thing that I very much loved reading about is that I get overwhelmed at time and very discouraged when I realize what I don't know. I'm teaching a weaving class, and sometimes it's like, why am I even trying to do this? There's so much I don't know. And I find it discourages me. But I was reading that you're just the opposite. You're like, oh, good. There's something else I can learn. And I loved that. And I thought, I really want to embrace that kind of thinking. I love that.
Oh, thanks. That is so true, though. I love learning. You know what? Learning makes my brain light up. And it really is my joy. And I'd say that, the real sign of an expert is somebody who knows that they don't know everything. And so, yes, I'm weaving 50 years. I've probably done more than many people, but I can go back to that very first weaving book and pick it up and learn something. You're always jumping over things. And so, that's one of the beauties of a beginner, is that their arms are wide open. They think they can do anything. And so they just go for it. But you know how the more we learn, the narrower we get. Like, oh, we have to be concerned about straight selvages. Oh, just all kinds of things.
I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to either make a plaque or cross stitch or something. I'm going to take the statement I read, which is beginners, anything's possible for beginners. I think that's what you said. But it's that same concept that when you're brand spanking new, it's all there. There's no limits. And I love that. I want to put that in my weaving class.
Well, there's a wonderful book Suzuki Roshi wrote, Beginner's Mind. And really it's his statement, but it's true, and I do think that the more you learn, the more you realize how many gaps there are in knowledge. I mean, we're seeing that in science now too. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to science. It doesn't mean as a teacher, I can't give good advice to my students, but it's those questions that stump you that make you start to see new possibilities. Yeah.
Well, the next work is kind of exciting. This is, you did this in honor of Gerhard Nodell, and he was on Textiles Tea earlier this year. And this is in honor of like a reunion or something. Can you talk about this piece?
Sure. So first of all, that was a wonderful talk that you had with Gerhard. It was a really generous talk, and I do recommend everyone listen to it. So, Gerhard Nodell ran the fiber program at Cranbrook from 1970 through 1996. And then he was the director of the school from 1996 to 2007. So, in 1970, I always love this story. When I first was doing weaving in New York City at the Craft Students League, I realized that none of my friends were going to the commune. And I mean, I don't know where this commune was, but I would talk about it. It was so real in my mind. And so I was afraid to go alone. So I decided I should go get a master's degree. And because I had a B.A, I thought I should just go get an M.F.A. I didn't really know that maybe you need a B.F.A first. I applied to Cranbrook. And I remember my teacher telling me, oh, apply to University of Kansas. And I was like, I'm a New Yorker. I'm not going to Kansas. I did not apply there. And in the end, I got turned down. So I was one of the first people that Gerhard ever turned down. And I went to Mexico. And I got to enroll in a program where I literally, if I signed attendance for 9 months, would have gotten an M.F.A. But I was smart enough to know that's not, I did want to learn something. So I didn't continue. And then, years later, I went to University of Kansas for my B.F.A. And then in 1987, Gerhard accepted me as a student at Cranbrook. So he is hosting a reunion that actually is in 4 days, or 2 days, I think in 2 days in Michigan at his studio and home at Cranbrook. And I wanted to, I periodically go through these enormous feelings of gratitude. Gratitude really has no end. And so I usually send him an effusive, probably embarrassing email about, thank you, I'm so grateful you changed my life. It's all true. So I decided I was going to do this weaving that included the names of all of his students from those years. So that's what you're seeing in the background, the black letters. And in the detail, you can see my name going up from that red circle on the right, Bhakti Ziek. Piper Shepherd was there. Kemi Nakano Cohen was at school with me. All the, so I did it. I laid it out so the names are in by the years, so there were groups of them. Gerhardt's work is often about games and chants and game boards. I put the game boards in. I did try to do a little circle for every student. And it's hard to see, but those circles actually have 3 different weave structures in it. So I clumped it so that if one class had 5 students, then those 5 were done in, say, a 1/7 satin. And then if the next class had 8 students, those might have been done in a 4/4 satin. And, but those, it's not like everything shows up. The background is striped. So there's 26 years and 26 stripes. And basically it's just the embodiment of my gratitude. And it's called lineage. And, it is truly amazing to think about the effects that one human being can have on this world. Gerhard really did change the fiber world. And everybody listening, whether you studied with him or not, you have studied with somebody who studied with him. And so that lineage, it really is a triangle that goes right back to him. And of course, Gerhard would make that triangle open up and go back to the history of textiles. So, which is true. We are all connected. When we read about all of those anonymous weavers or the latest discovery of some textile from 2000 BC, we're related. That is our ancestor. So I'm really, really, and I did send this to him. So I'm glad he got it in time that I could really show it to everybody on this talk. Right.
Oh, I think that's amazing that you did that. I'm sure people are dying to see it. And and it's such a generous thing you did for everyone. You could have just made something that goes between you and him, but you included everyone. That was very generous, very generous.
Well, and it was my heroes. For me, the experience of making this was really incredible because I could weave it and I would see Ann Wilson, Katerina Wesleyan, Jane Lackey. These are people that I have been fortunate to meet and love, but they're my mentors. So, and my friends are there. And so, yeah, it was very
well. I'm going to shift you off into another direction. You and your husband travel, I think that you were described as urban nomads. So how do you think all that traveling impacted on your work?
Well, for one thing, how many people say, oh, I traveled the world and I realize we're all the same, sort of like I'm saying about the sky. Yes, it's the same sky. It's the same sky, but there really is rain here and sun there and clouds here and, snow. I think that travel showed me that there are real differences in how we see the world. And it's helped me to try to not be so attached to my belief systems or my views. Now, of course, I'm very attached to my belief systems, and I believe that I get to choose morality, my morality. You know, I would say my basic belief is try not to do harm to others. I do. I hurt others. I don't intend to, though, or I hope I don't intend to. But by traveling the world, it's just, again, it's also one of those things that makes you just appreciate diversity. I was born in New York City. And when I was like 4.5, we moved to Long Island. But I was raised to know that I was a New Yorker. We went into the city almost every weekend to see my grandparents. As soon as I was 16, I was allowed to go in by bus myself, and, you know, go to museums, go to plays. And New York City, it is the world in miniature. I haven't been there in a long time. I hear there's changes, but I'm sure that I can still go and get dim sum in Chinatown and pizza in Little Italy. And, you know, it's that microcosm of our diversity. I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think it's of course, what the internet is, I mean, this is great, Kathy. We're having a conversation.
I know, it's wonderful.
I like that. But it also brings a lot of uniformity. So, you know, when I was in Guatemala, most of the Mayan Indians were still in traje. They were still, you know, they were wearing clothing that identified their village. And when you were in Guatemala City, you would see somebody and you could say, San Antonio, I can't remember names. You could say Panachel, or, you know, you would know by their costume, or we call costume.
Oh, okay.
It's their everyday clothing. That's right. But I've seen pictures recently. Now, I will say the men are the first to give up the traditional because they start going to the marketplace and having more exchange. So many men had jeans. But in recent pictures, I see almost all of the men are completely in Western dress, or like this. And so I feel that it is sort of like we're losing species every day. Hundreds of species are going extinct. That's true with our customs and our, so, you know, it's tricky because then there are people who identify so strongly with one culture or identity that they can be bigoted, or they, you know, they cannot be tolerant of the other things. So how do you find that balance between this diversity that is so beautiful and so important, and also the commonality? So I think the travel, you know, just, I mean, and it was terrific. And it's funny, I just don't know if I'll ever, you know, there are places like Indonesia. I never got to Indonesia, or Peru. I never got, I mean, there's so many places I never got to. Even if we did do a circle that went completely around the world, which we did, Mark and I, you miss most places. So I guess I'll have to come back again in another form and to travel the world.
There you go. Well, I want to ask you one more thing, and then I guess we need to get to questions pretty soon, but it's kind of a goofy question, but what do you wish people would, because you've been interviewed by tons of people, what do you wish people would ask you? If you were interviewing you, what would you ask?
Oh, I'm glad I don't have to interview myself because I don't know what I would ask, but I would say, I love it when people ask questions. And I never know what they're going to ask. And I'm kind of what you see is what you get. So I'm very much, ask me anything. I mean, literally, ask me anything, I'll answer. And so I just think whatever is somebody has curious, I just think, don't be afraid, ask me, you know. And if I did feel that it was just something I couldn't answer, didn't know, if I didn't know, I could say that. If I didn't want to answer it, I could say that. So I would say, whatever you want to ask. Put some questions in the Q&A.
Oh, we got a bunch. So before we go to Q&A, what's next for you?
I am hoping to get involved in a series of smaller pieces that sort of jump off from that lineage weaving. Obviously, I'm not going to use the names of Gerhardt's students. I'm probably not going to do the same game board, but I know it will have geometry. You know, I love Islamic geometry. I just love it. I think that the materiality of that piece with I'm using a fine silk, like 2 strands of 60s two as the weft is a condition I've been looking for. So it'll have words, it'll have imagery, but you know, I don't really know, but I do know it's going to be definitely related to that piece.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, and also I have I really want to do a white on white overshot. And so I just bought a new loom. I bought a 40-inch Maycomer loom.
You did?
It only has 4 harnesses, which is all you need for overshot, but I do love deflected double weave. So I've ordered 4 more shafts. I actually ordered 6 more shafts.
Have you woven on it yet?
No, I haven't, but I'll get it, you know, set up, and I'll do that white on white overshot before I get the new shafts, because, you know, that'll take a while to set it up.
Well, I hope it'll be on your website. I want to see it.
Yeah, my website. I think I go in there about once a year and change it. So it'll get there.
Well, this will be a reason. This will be a good reason for you to go in there, because everybody's going to want to see it now. You told everybody. So.
Yeah, right, when I do it.
All right. Well, we got tons of questions here. And you're talking about your yarns, a great segue, because Beth Wrench, hi Beth, what is your favorite type of yarn to work with on the TC2?
I love silk and I love fine threads. So at one point I had a loom that actually had 8 modules. I could set them up back to back, you know, one behind another. So I had 120 threads to the inch, and I used 140s over 2 silk as the warp, and then a 200, 220 silk for the weft. Very, very fine. I mean, I'm very drawn to craftsmanship and to, even though in Guatemala, the brocading I did, I remember Gerhardt once saying something about that scale of the threads in Guatemala was something the hand could do, but he didn't think that the Chinese brocades and, and silk could be done by hand. I think he's right. I certainly can't distinguish those threads by hand myself. So I do like really, really fine. Right now, my loom, I only have it set up for 2 modules wide, so 30 ends to the inch. So I'm working with an 8/2 rayon on the warp. And but I wanted finer, so that's why I'm going to the very fine silks for the weft. So I have many more picks than I have ends.
Well, we have Kathy Roig. Hi, Kathy.
Oh, hi, Kathy.
She says, hi, Bhakti. I think you know what an influence and a mentor you have been to me. At a workshop years ago in Cleveland, you spoke of the preciousness of one. Can you expand on that? And that sentiment has stayed with me all these years. All right, I got to hear about this. This sounds good.
The preciousness of one?
Yeah, that's what she said, like, you talked about.
O-N-E?
Yes.
Wow. Kathy, you'll have to write me about it. I have no idea. I mean,
Kathy, when I take your workshop, I want to hear your version of the preciousness of one.
I could make up something, but I really have no idea what I was referring to.
Okay.
And it must have come from that group. I mean, when I'm teaching, I'm very much present with who's in the room. So if it stayed with you, Kathy, it must have been appropriate for you.
Well, she said it really impacted her. So way to
That's
go,
great.
Bhakti.
Thanks.
Way to go. Gail Pilgrim
I remember
said,
Kathy, but I don't remember the saying.
That's the important thing. That's the important thing. Gail Pilgrim wants to know, are you drawn to certain colors and combination more than others when creating such complex weavings?
Yeah. I don't know about that. I think I have a very odd color sense. Sometimes I've wondered if I'm colorblind because people have made comments like, oh, that's an odd color combination. But so I would say no, but for example, in that last piece, I did a lot of sampling of color. And first I was going to do this blue background. So maybe blue, because I do feel the sky is just one of those elements in life that will actually sometimes like hit me on the head and make me be present. So, and I, the blue of New Mexico sky is just lush. I love it. So I was thinking of blue, and then I had to change it because I was making the piece specifically, I could think about who I was making it for. So I would say my color choices hopefully have more to do with the idea of the piece and relate to it and help to bring that out.
Well, Anu Bhaktia, I'm probably pronouncing your name very badly. She said, would you explain your design process from scanning your scribblings to weaving a scan design?
Okay. So I'm talking about I'll just say that on the floor loom, mostly, first of all, I don't like to draw. And I sketch or keep a notebook, or I just don't like doing that.
Okay.
I do like writing. I love to write emails. So like when I was doing a lot of painted warps, I would just like sort of play with color, very spontaneous. And I needed that spontaneity in my work because I knew once I was at the loom, it was going to be more restrictive. And then I often used to do a lot of brocading on that painted warp, and I would just be reacting to whatever was coming up. So in a brocade, weft brocade, you can just add or subtract color as you're going. The TC1, which is what my loom is, has a completely different process. I have to do everything beforehand on the computer, and then I turn that image into a big black and white weave structure. So it's 880 threads wide by however many picks are in the design. And so I have to really, really conceive of what I'm going to do ahead of time. So for me, it's often I go out with my camera, my phone, take pictures. I do a lot of collaging in Photoshop. I can scan my handwriting. I like using my handwriting. It's kind of a joke, but it used to be people would say about their handwork, oh, it's the hand of the weaver that makes it so special. And then people would say, well, Jacquard, this hand of the weaver, even though I'm throwing the shuttle. And so I would say, well, what's more the hand of a weaver than my handwriting? So, but once I get to the loom, the lifting pattern is set. And it's going to be that way unless I go back to the computer. I can jump through if I want. I can skip 10 threads or, 10 picks, but I don't do that usually. And I can choose any weft that I want.
Well, you have a big shout out from Alice Schlein. She said, hello, dear friend.
Hi, Alice.
Thanks, Alice. I'm glad to know you're watching. And let's see. A lot of people were asking where the Princeton Sky piece is. Now that is in a building on the Princeton campus, correct?
Yes, it's a Whitman College is a residential college, so students live that's where they live, and the community building that houses Stardust, it's a cafeteria. So so many people think it's a church.
It does look like a church, yeah.
But it's a cafeteria, and I've been there and watched students eat away, not looking up once. Very disappointed. So it's right on that, like one of the central roads in the Princeton campus. And I want to say that if anyone goes to my website, which bhaktiziek.com, there is a folder called Stardust. And I think the second image in that folder is actually a video of me making that piece. And I think it's interesting to watch. If you want to see how the process works, it's a good one to see.
Yes, it is. It's very good. Let's see, Sheila O'Hara is here saying hi.
Sheila.
Happy to see and hear you, Bhakti, in person again after such a long time. She says hi from California.
Hi.
Oh, and Patricia Dunn wants to know Beginner's Mind. Who wrote that? You talked about that earlier?
Yes, Suzuki Roshi. Roshi. Beginner's Mind. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind.
Okay. Christine Livingston wants to know any suggestions for mastering backstrap weaving. She said she was introduced by a friend who is a member of the Triqui tribe from Mexico. I recently found your book online and ordered it. So any suggestions for mastering the backstrap weaving?
Right. So I think that there's a woman, a wonderful weaver, very, very generous teacher named Laverne Wallington. Is that right? Am I saying that right? Do you know, Kathy? And Laverne has
Waddington.
Wallington?
No L, I think. Waddington?
Waddington has a video.
I'm watching. If you are, pipe up, Laverne.
Yeah. Videos and books on backstrap, and she does a fantastic job of teaching it. So yeah, my book gives you the how-to instructions, but you know, if I had to set up a backstrap loom right now, there it is, Waddington, I would definitely go, I will go watch Laverne to get some tips.
Thank you, Cameron. It is Laverne Waddington. Thanks, Cameron. That was Cameron Taylor Brown that piped up there. Where was it in Mexico that you learned backstrap? Patricia Dunn would like to know.
Oh, I didn't learn it in Mexico. I learned it in Guatemala.
There you go.
So when I was at the school in Mexico, you know, getting this pseudo master's degree, which I didn't finish, I wanted to do backstrap, but they didn't know how. This was in San Miguel de Allende. Nobody, they told me they would, you know, for them weaving was, you came in, the loom was already threaded, and you went and you did tapestry. But actually what happened is I would do, and the teacher, a Mexican weaver, came and he would show you what to do, leave, and I would weave an inch or two. He'd come back and shake his head no, and undo everything and weave another inch or two. Then I would weave another inch or two. He'd come back, take it all out. So I have this piece that I wove, got unwoven, and he wove. You know, it was in Guatemala. I learned in first in Santiago Atitlan, which is on Lake Atitlan. I lived up in Neiva, which is up in the Cuchimontanes. And then I lived in Panachel. I traveled all over Guatemala. I was there almost 5 years. And I learned from wonderful, generous Mayan women.
Somebody's asking, are you going to teach any more workshops? Or are you just teaching from home now?
Gee, I'm not really doing either right now. But I'd like to do both. I had the most wonderful experience in 2017 and 2019 doing the 8-week concentrations at Penland. In 2017, I co-taught with Tommy Scanlon, and then 2019 it was my own class. And you know, 8 weeks is really a long time to live, you know, 24/7 with students. It is like a college term, but even more intense in it. And I love that kind of teaching, intense teaching, because I learned so much. You know, I could go in with a plan, but the students have these questions, and then you have to follow them through. In my own studio, I suppose I would still do some tutorial. I call it tutorial teaching. People come and I set up a program, again, individually, but mostly they want to do the TC1. Nobody does a piece on my loom. They're all doing just little samplers. I mean, little sample pieces, but they're learning how. And then if they want to really weave, there are other places to go to do full pieces, or they can buy a loom.
There you go.
Yeah, right. So,
well, there are so many things. There's so many questions we're not going to get to, but I do want to say this. This may mean something to you. Please tell Bhakti that Helen and Matthew love her.
Oh, hi, Helen. I love them too.
Excuse me. And sorry, Marilyn Robert brought up a keynote that you did at the Serpents Design Conference in Kansas, and you spoke about beginners. Do you recall that?
I think that it was the surface design in Portland, Oregon that they're talking about. I got to do the keynote speech. It was a really an amazing event in my life, something that, was years ago, like 90, maybe it was 96. But I still remember that silence I could just remember people really paying attention, and people came up afterwards, and it was like I was a guru. It was so weird. They just like formed a line, and I hugged one person after another. I'm not really touchy-feely, but I love hugging people. And it was a really great experience. Yes. And Surface Design published that speech. So it is, again, if you go to my website under publications, I have a PDF of that talk if you want to read it again.
That's what I was going to tell people. If you've not read it, go to her website and read it. It is wonderful. It is wonderful. And Lori Adio was saying, hi, Bhakti. And she commented on some comments in the Complex Weavers article that stayed with her. So again, I would encourage you all to find those. I apologize to everybody who has questions. We're not going to be able to get to them today. There's a million comments. All of them are just hello. They love you, miss you. You have a fan club. You really do.
Well, thank you.
So I am so pleased that you were able to be with us today, sharing about your life and your work. I hope you'll come back again. I just feel like there's so much more that we could talk about. Thank you so much, Bhakti, for being on here.
Yes, and thank you everyone for watching. And if anyone wants to, again, on my website, you can contact me and I'll write you back. I'm a very good typist. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone. Whitney, everyone who made this possible. Bye.
Again, if you want to learn more, and you really need to go to her website, it is a wealth of knowledge. Please go to her website. It's bhaktiziek.com, and you'll see all kinds of things there, and links to other interviews. There's a couple of videos that you can go to from there that are just wonderful. We do want to thank Heddlecraft today for sponsoring Textiles and Tea. Another thing you need to go check out, it's a wonderful magazine. It's full of patterns and information, and you can find more about it on huddlecraft.com. If you would like to sponsor Textiles and Tea or your guild or your business, please go to our website at weavespindye.com. You can get more information on how you too can be a sponsor for Textiles and Tea. We do get also a lot of support from the Fiber Trust. If you would like to support HGA, please donate or join or both at weavespindye.org. Don't forget, Convergence is open for registration. If you're interested in going next summer, which how could you not? There's still classes available. Please come online and take a look at that. If you've missed some episodes or you want to watch this again, which I'm sure you will, please go to Facebook and you can watch any episode that you would like. All of them are up there. You do not have to have a Facebook account to watch. You can just go on and go straight to the Textiles and Tea recordings. Next week, I'm so excited. We're going to have Deanne Rubin on. She's going to be our guest next week. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It was wonderful spending this time with Bhakti. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great week and happy tea.